With that, welcome you inside this edition of Big Ten Today, presented by Gatorade. All treats, no tricks here today. Rick Pizzo joined by Dave Wanstead in studio. No costume today, Coach?
No, I'm the grandfather that sits on the stoop with a little cocktail and a cigar and hands the candy out for my granddaughter.
As long as the cocktails are not handed out to anybody under legal drinking age. We check in with the third member of today's Big Ten Today crew, Ross Dellinger. Always dapper, but no costume either. Ross, how do you plan to celebrate October 31st?
Yeah, I think my wife is dressing me up as a murderer. So I'll have some fake blood all over, and I'll have, murdered her, I think. Hopefully not for real.
Wow, and I just said we weren't going to get scary on this television program. That promise lasted all of about 60 seconds. We dive straight into today's big story. It's developing news, a story that actually occurred on Thursday as Matt Rhule signs an extension to remain in Lincoln, 2 additional years onto Rhule's existing contract, which means he is now locked up via contract in Lincoln through 2032. No additional money on the base salary for Rhule, but there are college football playoff escalators that could make it $12.5 million per year.
You know, I've rediscovered my love of this game and coaching and all that with these guys that are here. And so, you know, as this process went on, I think I was really honest with you guys the first day. We've wanted to be here, and we expect to be here for a long time. And we have much, much, much more to do. Hopefully a message that we can send to all of the recruits, all the players, that this is the place to be. And we want to be here. College football is changing, and this has been do or die time for universities. And the alignment we have and the willingness to invest in the program, to invest in the facilities. And I think you're seeing a great time in the Husker athletics. It's just home. And so for me, it wasn't about necessarily even the job. And I'll just tell you, Sam, I've left too many teams. I've left too many players. And the players always understood, and they were always grateful to me. I could not leave these guys. I love this team, and I love this group, and I love where we're headed. I love the recruits. Every recruit that called me when my name started, I said, I'm not going anywhere.
Ross, this is a huge get for Nebraska. A few weeks ago, Matt Rhule didn't completely shut down some of the talk about a return to Penn State, went to high school there, played there, coached there. This extension seems to kind of end that conversation. So first and foremost, what does this mean for Nebraska? And also, as you look at the big picture, how does it kind of affect the coaching carousel?
Well, nobody, especially athletic director there in Nebraska, Troy Daniel, wanted to get into this coaching market. I don't think anybody really does, right? It's going to be the most historic, busiest, and costliest coaching market that we've probably ever seen, right? Right now we have, I think, maybe 8 or 9 power conference jobs open. There's probably going to be 5 to 7 more open. And there's going to be some backfill, right? Some power conference jobs, some power conference coaches will be hired away to fill these jobs we're talking about. So we're talking about 16, 18, maybe even 20 plus power conference jobs coming open. There are only 68 of those. So it is a historic year. We already spent $160+ million in buyout money too. That's a record. Nobody wants to get sort of into this coaching carousel if they don't have to. And for Nebraska, this is huge, right? Because not only is it a 2-year extension, as you mentioned, Rick, and it's also this kind of sort of innovative clause in it's sort of an incentive every year. That Nebraska makes the college football playoff, Matt Rhule will get an additional $1 million onto his deal for the life of the deal. So that's pretty significant, and obviously our awards a playoff berth. But the biggest thing in this contract is that the buyout to leave for Matt Rhule is $15 million. Not only that, but it's $5+ million more if he's going to take key staff members with him. So all in all, $20+ million in buyout money to leave. That is huge, and obviously that is something that will certainly prevent many, if not all, schools from hiring Matt Rhule at least this cycle, if not future years.
Great points, Ross, especially about Troy Dannon making this decision before movement happens at places like Penn State and Florida and LSU. But from the coaching perspective, Dave, why do you think Matt Rhule made this specific decision right now, clearly with the knowledge that Penn State would be interested in him at the end of the year?
Well, if you look at Matt's bio, I mean, the guy's been 11 different places. I think his wife had as much to do with this decision, truly, and his kids as anybody. It said, you know what, why are we moving again? Give me some good reasons. So I think that the family had an impact of just moving, new staff, everything that goes along with that. I think the second thing, too, you know, and we don't know if he even talked to anybody, okay, but the standard, anything that he does, it's been almost 15 years, we talked earlier, since Nebraska won 10 games.
Yeah,
correct?
2011.
Okay, so everything that he's doing right now, winning a game in the fourth quarter, you know, it's all positive stuff for the program, for Matt, for his coaching staff and players. You go to Penn State, 10 wins ain't going to get it, Coach.
Well, James Franklin got criticized by winning 10 games all the time and winning big games, just not the biggest games.
Thank you. So I think that Matt is a smart guy. He sat back. His wife's saying one thing. He's looking at this thing saying, geez, if I go there, I mean, is it that much of a better of a job than what I have right here? Because 10 wins here is going to really, you know, get me a parade.
Well,
almost.
It's the age-old saying, grass is not always greener on the other side. And talking about green, that contract has plenty of green in it.
Yeah,
so money not going to be an issue. And I know money's not a conversation right now because the money is so silly right now that if you're at this level, you are going to be making stupid cash. But, Ross, you also still have to coach and win on the field. And Nebraska has a massive game coming up this week. Kind of one of those show-me games. USC's in town. Both teams still hold college football playoff outside chances should they win out. They're legitimate parts of the conversation. It's going to be a sellout. It's at home. To me, I don't think you can overstate how big this game is for Nebraska, not just this weekend, but for the entirety of this season and maybe seasons moving forward.
Well, there's nothing worse than probably giving a coach an extension, plus these new sort of incentives built in, a lot more money potentially for Matt Rhule, and then to go out and lose a home game, right? In a big game, a playoff elimination game. You know, we use that phrase a lot. It's a little overused. This one is a playoff elimination game. I mean, these two programs, USC and Nebraska, each have two losses. They pretty much got to win out, you know, to have a chance at an at-large berth. And so you sort of look at this matchup, right? Coach, it's a great matchup of quarterbacks. Jaden Maeva has been just tearing through teams, 311 yards a game. We know about Dylan Raiola and how sort of talented he is. You know, we saw Nebraska at home get pushed around by Michigan in a loss. USC pushed around Michigan in LA in a game earlier this year. Who pushes around who? That's what it's going to probably come down to. Can USC sort of get a ground game perhaps going? Because the Cornhuskers have struggled. You know, they lost Tony White at defensive coordinator last year to Florida State, and they just haven't been the defense that we all sort of expected. They're 89th in the country in rushing. So can USC sort of get the ground game going, add in Jaden Maeva, and you can see how they could win this game and sort of spoil the contract celebration for Matt Rhule.
Yeah, I think the point you made, Ross, about this is a game where the linemen are going to make a difference on both sides of the ball. There's no question about that. And, you know, Nebraska first, I mean, they need to feed this ball to Emmett Johnson, not just in the running game, but he's dangerous passing the game. You stand back there and want to throw it, you're putting your offensive line under a lot of stress. So they've got to run the ball, and they've got to throw, I think, high percentage throws, a lot of it to Johnson. He'll make plays there. And I'll tell you what, their pass defense, you mentioned Nebraska's run defense struggles, okay? But they're very good, you know, in pass defense, and their secondary's been fantastic this year. So to me, first down is a key. Nebraska needs to play great somehow, some way on first down, get them in third down situations. And USC, 1 point on them. When they run the ball 50% of the time, they're tough to beat. And they're probably seeing the same stats that everybody else is. That's the key for them. Run the football.
But is Lincoln Riley seeing those stats, and does he listen to them? He is a guy who prefers to throw the football. This is probably a situation where running the ball, if you can run it, gives USC the best chance to win under the lights at Memorial Stadium. Take a look at the Week 10 big board. Hard to believe only 5 weeks remain in the regular season. Penn State, Ohio State kicks off at noon in Columbus. That game not exactly what we expected it would be at the start of the year. You can see Michigan State, Minnesota, followed by Purdue and Michigan, an afternoon-evening doubleheader right here on the Big Ten Network. Rutgers travels to Illinois. Maryland plays host to second-ranked Indiana. And we already touched on USC at Nebraska at night. Ross, let's start with that Michigan-Purdue game. We weren't sure what to expect from the Wolverines and specifically quarterback Bryce Underwood. They found a way. Obviously, that win over Washington was absolutely huge. They've also won on the road at Nebraska. And now they are truly looking to start a November playoff push. They believe they can be part of the CFP.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at Michigan's resume, and sure, they got a loss at USC, a loss at Oklahoma. Those are 2 road losses against teams that probably by the end of the year will finish in the top 25. If they're not, they'll be right outside. I don't think they hurt Michigan's resume a whole lot. But look, the bottom line is Michigan's got to win out. And I can kind of just see it coming, guys, that we're going to be in the big house. It's going to be full rocking. Maybe there's going to be snow flurries coming down. It's going to be a 1-score game in the fourth quarter against Ohio State. Michigan will be gunning for a 5th straight win against the Buckeyes and a playoff appearance on the line. I can just see it coming because the rest of the way, Michigan should be a pretty heavy favorite in these next few games. They got the running game really going. They're playing good defense up front, Coach. And I'd expect us to get to that game against the Buckeyes and them having a real good shot at getting in this playoff.
Yeah, I mean, can't lose sight of Michigan graduating a couple first-rounders in that offensive line or defensive line last year. So Wink Martindale is working his way through it, and they're still second in the Big Ten in takeaways. So they're doing a good job on defense. I think the key to this thing here, Barry Odom in his first year at Purdue, we talked about this early in the year. When they were winning some games, regardless of who they were playing, they were not turning the ball over. They were not committing crazy penalties. I mean, they were playing clean and efficient. They were throwing and catching the ball. They were balanced. And then in the last 3 or 4 weeks, they've kind of got away from that stuff. And if you don't do those things when you're trying to build a program with all the new players and the portal players and everything, new philosophies, you got no chance of winning. So they need to play clean in all those areas I mentioned to have any chance, I think, whatsoever this week.
That late turnover absolutely cost them the game last week against Rutgers. Now, Michigan has been running the ball and running the ball and running the ball, but Justice Haynes is banged up. Wouldn't be surprised in this game against a Purdue team struggling to defend the pass if maybe Chip Lindsey dials up some more of the downfield passing game. Penn State, Ohio State. I mentioned it's not what we expected at the beginning of the year. Ross, it was interesting to hear Terry Smith, the Penn State interim head coach, earlier this week. He said, yes, we understand we're 3-touchdown underdogs. I'll use that to motivate the guys, but I also want them to play like they have nothing to lose. I want us to coach like we have nothing to lose. Smith saying he's asking OC Andy Kotelnicki to open up the game, go more vertical. I'm not sure that's a good recipe against Ohio State, but I do appreciate the aggressiveness.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is in a way, right? It's probably not fun to be 0-4 in the Big Ten if you're Penn State, but in a way, this is sort of fun that you can just let it rip, right? And it sounds like that's what they plan to do, but bust out whatever trick plays and whatnot that you can. Maybe the guys will play a little more loose and laid back. But here's the thing. No matter what they bust out, Coach, I think they're going to have their work really cut out for them. This is going to be a tough one, right? Ohio State has sort of quietly been the best team in the country. I say that because the Buckeyes haven't played, one of the hardest sort of schedules, and they've been a little bit overshadowed within the conference by Indiana's success. But Ohio State continues to just be on an absolute heater defensively like we've never seen in the history of, like, modern history of college football, right? Matt Patricia has those guys playing really, really well. They lead the country in yards allowed by nearly 20 yards to the next team, and they give up 5.9, Coach, 5.9 points a game. That's almost half of what the next best team, best defensive unit in college football is. It's pretty remarkable what we're seeing from them.
Yeah, I think one of the years I was at Miami, we led the country in defense, and we were like 9.5. I don't know how they're giving up 5.5 points. That is crazy. And they don't give up big plays on offense. They don't give up sacks, but they get sacks on defense. They're a complete team. I'll tell you what, Terry Smith, okay, the coach, interim coach, I know Terry very well. He was a high school coach in Pittsburgh at Gateway High School the whole time I was at Pitt. I recruited probably 3, 4, 5 players from his school that were really good players, well coached. I got a lot of respect for Terry, but let me tell you something. When I watch Penn State, guys, I've kind of see this thing from a different light. They got a new young quarterback. I'm not so sure that I wouldn't start playing young players. I mean, these veteran players, they're not stopping the run. They're not blocking. These are veteran guys that have been around, and they're just not getting the job done. As a coach, I would be thinking, are they talking to their agents? Are they getting ready for the NFL? Something's missing. When you don't play great defense, it falls into 2 categories. If you know what to do and give great effort, I don't care what the weather conditions are, where you're playing, you should play great defense. And it's not happening. We know that they have a good scheme. I'd start playing some of these younger players. I honestly would.
Yeah, younger players against the #1 team in the country in Columbus, though, it could be a recipe for disaster. Though I understand, nothing to lose. I totally get where you're going. What I don't get, Ross, is how many people believe Indiana could be on upset alert this weekend. I know Maryland's at home. I know they have talent. Malik Washington is a very good young quarterback. They've had a chance to win every game they've been in. They've led the majority of them, if not all of them, in the second half. But this is a different animal. This is Indiana, and every time that Curt Cignetti has any bit of motivation to use to his team, he pushes all the right buttons, and they go out there and they win by 50. To me, that's more likely than Maryland pulling off the upset.
Yeah, I've been calling it the Indiana machine, man. I mean, we're usually used to hearing that with basketball, the Hoosier basketball machine, but this is the football machine. It's been extraordinary to watch what Curt Cignetti's there, what he's built, the program. But you're right. This feels sort of like one of those games that could be closer than expected. And I'll say that for a few reasons. Maryland is almost due, right? They could fairly easily have won the last 3 games. They've blown late leads in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. They've got a solid team, Mike Locksley does. He's got a quarterback in Malik Washington that has really shown poise and some good flashes. We've seen him be prolific in some games. But they will meet one of the country's best defenses there. You know, you see it there on the clips. Aiden Fisher at linebacker. We make a lot of Indiana's offense, right? And it's a machine. Fernando Mendoza at quarterback and all those guys. But Aiden Fisher has been one of the best linebackers in the country. He came over from JMU with Curt Cignetti, and they've just crushed the hearts of everybody they face, including that Oregon offense. So this is going to be a tough one for the Terrapins, but it'll be interesting. I'll be there. I'm going to actually go attend the game. I live here in D.C., so going to go out there in person and see the Indiana machine and what they can do.
Yeah, I see this as a little bit of a dangerous game. The whole key is, from Maryland's perspective, they're better on defense, everything Ross talked about there. Maryland needs to take this game. They were ahead of Washington, UCLA, Nebraska in the fourth quarter, but they need to get this game into the fourth quarter and find a way to win. You cannot let Indiana jump out ahead of you where now it's a pass-only offense and the run game means nothing for Maryland. Now it's a real danger zone. But you're playing at home. There'll be a great crowd there.
I just don't see it. Yeah. I get it. I like Michael Locksley. I think he's a great offensive mind. I think the defense has been better for sure. This is Indiana. I mean, Indiana's beating people by 50. They're scoring touchdowns on their first drives. They're picking opponents off on their first drives. Stop doubting Curt Cignetti. Yeah. They're going back to the college football playoff for a second consecutive year. In my mind, probably the best story we've seen in college football in the history of the Big Ten Network, some 2 decades. We're back with your Gatorade Big Stat and a focus on the Fighting Illini. After an historic 2024, Illinois now has the opportunity to win 10 games in back-to-back seasons, which would be the first time that's ever been accomplished in program history. Illinois also just 1 win away from securing bowl eligibility in consecutive seasons. The last time that happened, 2010 and 2011. Excited to have the head coach of the Illini, Bret Bielema, joining us for today's big interview. Bret, welcome in. I want to start off the field because I know you're a huge family guy. That does apply on the field as well. But you have two girls who are like the perfect Halloween age, and it is Halloween day. So I'm curious as to what the Bielema household looks like and feels like today.
You know, I'm a big routine guy. Obviously last night was Thursday night. It's the only night I let my coaches go about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Usually we're here till late in the evening, but I usually let them out. I have a team meeting at 5:15, but then I quickly go down to my office, pack up for the night, and I get to attend dance class on Thursday nights. And last night I saw my youngest daughter, who is Luke Altmaier, on Halloween in a Luke Altmaier jersey, performing tap dance last night. And so I took a video of that, sent it to Luke, said, I don't think I've ever seen your jersey do this. And then Friday mornings, I got an early haircut this morning at 6 a.m. and I go back and take my daughters to school. It's a Friday drop off, and to drop my girls off at their private school with the some of the nuns and people out in front dressed as dinosaurs and inflatable chipmunks was pretty entertaining, to say the least.
That's awesome.
Hey, Coach, now you got to be a big candy bar guy, right? I mean, I've got some good friends in Pittsburgh. Honest to God, this time of year, like 2 weeks before Halloween, they got to go and get the big candy bars at Costco.
Yeah, the king-size bars.
King size at Costco, because they did that when they were kids. I don't know. I'm betting Bret.
You think the house? You think they give out king size bars?
Maybe.
That's one thing I'm not in charge of. I did see some Halloween bags on the counter, but I quickly stay out of that one.
Smart move. Hey, Bret, I want to go back to Monday. I listened to your entire press conference, and one thing kind of really stood out to me. You said there was a reminder after the Washington loss to the team about what's happened over the last couple of years since you got to Champaign, and how the culture and the mindset changed, that losing or not playing your best was no longer acceptable, and that there was a reminder of that after you guys got back this past weekend. So without sharing too much inside info, how do you remind the guys about that kind of mindset and how important it is throughout the course of November?
Well, you know, Rick, you've been with the Big Ten Network a long time. Illinois hasn't always been that great, right? And it took a long time to change that environment, not just in our building, but, you know, all around campus and in the Department of Intercollegiate Athletics. And we've worked really hard to get this place to where we want it to be. And obviously we're not even close to where I think we can go. But, you know, the loss at Washington was the first time we had lost back-to-back games in over a year, and only happened once last year as well. So it's just one of those things. I always say this, right? When you have failure, there's two things that can happen. You can either set your standard that's not acceptable and remind you of where you want to go, or you can accept what you've done and it becomes commonplace again. And obviously we don't want that. So I thought it was a really important thing to stress to our guys that what we went through at Washington was not acceptable, and we got to change the narrative. It starts with me as a head coach. I took a lot of responsibility during that bye week to look at what I was doing with our coaches, with our staff, with our players. This week we're playing Rutgers, a team that I got a lot of respect for, and know a lot of those coaches. I know they're going to come in here and give us their best shot. So we got a tremendous opportunity on Saturday.
Hey, Coach, you know, obviously the schedule, everybody knows the schedule was brutal this year, the draw you got. But put that aside, you know, I've been following your team since Wisconsin days. And the one thing when you played Bret Bielema team, it was going to be, you better have your mouthpiece, because you were going to get hit in the mouth. You were going to be out physical, starting with your offense and defensive lines. As I was watching you a little bit this year, and maybe it's an extension of what you were just talking about a little bit, I call it the Super Bowl hangover. You know, hey, we set records. We were on the national scale last year, national conversation. We're a veteran team, and the mindset. Has it been the injuries? And I know you've been banged up, but it seems like your line play has been a little bit inconsistent. 1 week fantastic, the next week, you know, not where you want it. Any thoughts on that, why that might be? Injuries, Super Bowl hangover, whatever reasons? I'm curious.
Yeah, Coach, good point. You know, we last year we lost a Minnesota game and came back and won out the rest of the regular season, won the bowl game. And then the one thing about when you win a bowl game, it's that last game for almost an entire 6 months, right? And then we start off the year, we beat a Western Illinois team. We go on the road, beat a Duke team, who I think is a good football team, come back, beat Western Michigan. and then, obviously have a tough experience at Indiana, and I think we needed to learn from that. I did like the response to come back and beat USC, a team that we had a walk-off field goal to win it, but we dropped 2 balls inside the 5-yard line. I mean, we can't win games doing that, and I was trying to bring attention to that in the best way humanly possible. But, Coach, you're exactly right. I think, there's a reason I've emphasized O-line and D-line play my entire career. I think when big people talk, people listen. I think when big people play the way they play, people pay attention. So we've tried to concentrate on that a little bit more and get back to that, and hopefully that'll show up a little more on Saturday than ever before.
Let me ask you a question about Luke Altmaier, your quarterback. I remember when he was a sophomore, I guess it would have been, I saw some good things that excited me and some things that said, oh boy, I know turning the ball over is not going to go well with old Coach Bielema for sure. The last 2 years, honestly, and I've said this on this show, I think he may be one of the most underrated, least talked about quarterbacks in the country. I mean, the guy, I think, has really played super. I know the last week or two he's pressing. Everybody's down there pressing. It's that point in the season. But what's been his biggest turnaround? I mean, God, the guy, last year and all this year up until, like I say, the last maybe week or two pressing, this guy has been as good as anybody in the country.
Yeah, Coach, you're spot on. I think the thing that's really been impressive to me ever since he got here is as many quarterbacks I've been around, he's incredibly accurate, but what he sees is reality. He is a very, very aware football player. He sees the game extremely well. When he doesn't see it the way that it happened, he's the first to admit it. He's a very Christian, faith-based oriented kid, so he can't tell you anything but the truth. He's a really good leader. He's not one of those guys maybe that, just storms into the room and takes it over, but by the time he's there, people are going to know who he is and what he does. His statistics are unbelievable. Yeah, he's had 3 picks on the year. 2 of them are batted balls that, tip balls that went in the air and they caught him. 1 ball last week, he kind of underthrew a little bit, and I know he wished he had that one back, but he is taking care of the ball. He's extremely accurate. The numbers he's putting up, we have a record-breaking year again offensively with points scored, some of the totals, but we got to run the ball in critical moments. We have to be better, and you're exactly right. I think the only thing that I would say is we can't press, right? Like, obviously last week we didn't play great on defense, and I think he was feeling that a little bit and created that last turnover or even the first turnover. So we got to play within ourselves. Let's stick to the recipe. We always talk about how we want to play the game, and I think it's very important to stay that course and get all 3 phases to play well, and I think a lot of good things can happen.
Okay, Coach, on a lighter note, okay, every week or so, when I'm walking down to do my Big Ten TV, I call Jimmy Johnson, and we talk, and he's fishing, and I'm walking down to go to work. And he says, what about my friend Bret Bielema? He doesn't come and visit me at the Keys. And I said, he's got NIL, he's got Portal. And he says, what's Portal? What's NIL? What are you talking about?
Retired life is pretty good if you can get it, right?
So I'm just I'm the messenger in this deal. No more Keys. I'm covering for you. I'm telling him that you've been busy. He doesn't understand,
When I used to make those Keys runs with him, and I was maybe married, but I didn't have 2 little ones, right? When I get a spare moment, it's hard to express to Briella Brexley and my wife Jen that, hey, I'm going to go hang out with Jimmy Johnson and do some sail fishing. But yeah, Jimmy, I was excited to see the reunion of him last week down in Miami. Kind of see the awards he's achieved in the last year, but it's a tight knit group. And the NIL world, as you know, Coach, like it's just created a window. Pro football and college football are now mirrored to one another more than any other time in my life. Not only that, but in the NFL, there's a 53-man roster, a practice roster. We really are dealing with about a 60 to 70-man travel roster in college football that you got to focus on those players. You want to retain as many as you can, but our roster really now is about retention, removal, and acquisition, very similar to the NFL. So I'm excited about where we're at, but we got 4 games here. This first one on Saturday against Rutgers, it is going to be a huge effect on our program, as Rick mentioned in the opener, right? We've done some good things. We just got to get this season back on track and get our guys in a position to be successful each week.
Brett, you mentioned the connection between the NFL and college football and how much more like the NFL college ball is now. So it led me to think about your time in between Arkansas and your return to the Big Ten at Illinois. You obviously spent some time with a lot of different visiting NFL programs. I know you've talked in the past about how you felt like that time made you a better coach because it allowed you to reflect back on what worked and what didn't. How much did that time now help you when you are in this era of college football that is so much like the NFL?
You know, my first year in the league, fortunately, I was in New England. We won a Super Bowl that year. I was kind of my official title was special assistant to the head coach with Coach Belichick. So I did a lot of projects for him. I did a little bit on defense, but I also did some offense. One of the first things I did is a red zone report on 4 seasons, 4 different teams. And I gave that report to our coordinators, Brian Flores, who's now the DC at Minnesota, Josh McDaniels, who's now back at New England, and to Coach Belichick. And I just remember looking in detail at second down, which was kind of what I labeled the most forgotten down in football. So there's a lot of practical X's and O's, but then Coach Belichick, he really involved me a lot on being on the road, evaluating the offensive and defensive linemen, but then also the roster management once they were on our roster about, what we're paying them, why we're paying them, where it was. So I've definitely drawn from that. My 2 years in New England, we were playoff teams both years, and then I only did about a half a year with New York before I came to this Illinois job. So, yeah, a lot of valuable experiences that carried us forward to where we are, but nothing more important than this Saturday to get our mind and our focus on this Rutgers team who played a game last week against Purdue, pulled off a win, and I know they're going to come in here with a lot of confidence. They almost repeat the same trip coming back into the Midwest, same exact kick time this week.
All right, Bret, we finish these coach interviews each week with a little game of 3 and Out. These are quick-hitting questions that give you first down, second down, third down, and get you out of here on the final one. So in the spirit of Halloween, first down, what's the best costume of all time that you've ever worn?
Fonzie, Happy Days. I grew up in a little era there. That was the only one we had going.
Perfect. Never jumping the shark with Bret Bielema. All right, second down, best and worst Halloween candies of all time.
I know I probably look like a guy that likes candy. I'm not a sweet tooth guy. But if I would say the worst, candy corn by far. Never really kind of got into it. I know that we're in the Midwest. Maybe that's not a good thing to say. But my favorite, I'm a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. I'm a purist, a traditionalist at heart.
I agree on both counts. All right, third down, scariest team or individual player you've ever had to game plan against?
I think there's probably a lot of different, but when I was at Wisconsin, we were playing in a Rose Bowl, and they had Mamba, I think it was number 3. They had a wide receiver who punt return guy who kind of could change the game in a heartbeat, and just the pure speed of him on the field. I remember at that time, I was kind of like, this is a different deal. As a player, one of the first games I ever played in was against Michigan State, and I was talking noise on Tony Mandrich, and all of a sudden life was real. I was on his side, lined up against him on a 3rd and 4, and let's say I never got close to the quarterback, and that guy manhandled me pretty well. So a little bit of a double dip answer. All
right, the incredible bulk Tony Mandrich. Also, D'Anthony Thomas, I believe, the number 3 that you were referring to in that game inside the Rose Bowl. And lastly, we'll get you out of here on this. You're a guy who has called some successful trick plays in your career. What's the best trick play you ever called that turned out to be a treat for your team?
I just relived it. We have a couple of old linemen that I'm recruiting this week. I have a young man down in South Florida I'm trying to convince why he should come here. And we have on record the largest human to ever throw a touchdown pass in college football. Sebastian Tretola was the SEC Lineman of the Year. I lined him up and he acted like he was kind of out of his sorts, and he was lined up incorrectly. So we lined up in a little over formation. He came trotting back behind, and they snapped the ball directly to him, and he could throw the ball on a dime. He rolled to his right, hit an eligible center on a throwback touchdown pass, and when he rolled out of getting hit, he did a Heisman pose at 350 pounds. So it was probably one of my more entertaining, really magical moments. Still on the internet live, Sebastian Tretola, Arkansas, I believe 2016. It was pretty live.
Always great stuff with Bret Bielema, both on and off the field. Coach, we appreciate the time. Good luck this week against Rutgers. Happy Halloween to you and, of course, to the girls as well.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Coach. Have a great one. ILL.
Friday, the last day of the Big Ten Volleyball Discover Challenge. Nebraska and Purdue, the only teams unbeaten, both 4-0. The Huskers beat the Boilers earlier this year, but it wasn't part of the challenge. Nebraska, though, does have the tiebreaker over Purdue because of set differential. As a matter of fact, Huskers have not lost a set in any of their last 11 match victories. For more on the challenge and all things Big Ten volleyball, welcome in Big Ten Network volleyball analyst Mac Pedraza. Hey, Mac, I want to start with the challenge itself. What are you hearing from players and coaches? This added element to the season, it's almost like a season within a season for Big Ten volleyball.
Yeah, it's giving coaches and players a little something extra to play for. You know, sometimes you get through the grind of the Big Ten season and you're just going day in and day out. And this adds a little something extra. I mean, you get to play for a trophy, which is tons of fun, and just shows that there's people out there wanting to support volleyball. So shout out to Discover for wanting to sponsor this challenge even itself.
I just explained why unbeaten Nebraska has the tiebreaker over unbeaten Purdue, even though their match wasn't part of the challenge. The Huskers really have not been challenged. They've swept 11 in a row. They are unbeaten. They are by far considered to be not just the #1 ranked, but the best team in the country. So what has impressed you the most about what Nebraska has done in Danny Busboom-Kelly's first year?
It's incredible how well that they've just kind of chopped away day by day. There's really nobody giving them a match. Even listening to some fan talking out there, they're saying like, it's not even fun right now. We're just going and beating up on people. And it's like, that's kind of a funny concept because, you know, you want your team to do well. But no, Danny Busboom-Kelly has really gotten this squad ready to play. I mean, they're firing everywhere. There's nobody that can stop them. And I don't know if there's anybody in the country that can stop them. I mean, Nebraska is my early pick for national champions. And I think that they'll go unbeaten all the way through. It's impressive what DBK's done, but she's got that core group of juniors right now that are just rolling and they're really hungry for a national championship.
Also impressive is the job that Dave Shondell has done once again in West Lafayette. Preseason, we weren't sure what to expect from Purdue. You lose Eva Hudson, you lose Chloe Chacoin to the transfer portal, you lose other players to eligibility and going elsewhere, and yet it has not been a rebuild, it's just been a reload. How has Purdue accomplished what it has with a new look roster and really a new style of play in 2025?
One name for you, and that's Kenna Wallard. She's gone off. I talked to Dave Shondell early in the season about his expectations for Kenna Wallard, and he knew that she was going to have a lot on her plate, but he wasn't so sure how well she was going to do with how much she had on her plate. Playing 6 rotations is difficult. Being a 6-row outside, hitting out of the back row, the front row, blocking, being so defensive as well as offensive is not an easy feat for someone who's really never done it before. But Kenna Wallard has done it with grace, and she's really leading up that Purdue offense. But then, I mean, they've returned Grace Heaney, who didn't have a ton of opportunities earlier in her career, but now is letting the light shine on her. So there were some key pieces that stayed together, but those girls are really bonding and playing really well. And Shondell talked about how he loves just letting them go and be themselves. For a while, I think he was trying to be too serious with his group, and this is definitely not a group you can be too serious with. They love to go and have fun. He says sometimes a little too much fun. He has to crack the whip here and there, but letting them have the fun that they want to have is kind of letting them go be who they want to be and play really well together.
Kenna, certainly one of those players in the mix with about a month to go in the regular season before the Big Ten Player of the Year is named. Certainly Nebraska will have multiple players that are up for that award. Right now, Mac, if I pinned you down, who is the Big Ten Player of the Year at the end of October?
I mean, I don't want to say it's my Penn State bias, but I'm loving Kennedy Martin right now. I mean, she's going off. She's impossible to stop. I don't think that there are many players where I would say they're impossible to stop, but Kennedy Martin's almost like a cheat code. You give her the ball and she finds a way to score. But what's really impressing me with her right now is that her game is kind of full circle all around. It's not one-dimensional. She's not just hitting really well. She's playing incredible defense, and her blocking has improved game by game. So if she can keep on this roll, I think she's got it in the bag.
Especially potentially if Penn State is able to figure things out over the next month. It was a huge loss when Izzy Stark decided to step away from volleyball for her mental health. Everybody understands why she had to do that. And then the pressure that comes with being the defending national champs. What's your take on what the season has been like so far for Penn State? And do you still see the Nittany Lions as a big-time threat for the rest of the year?
they've definitely gone through quite an adverse season. I mean, last year, even with Coach Katie's cancer and all of that, I mean, that's still very much a realistic thing in those girls' world right now. But then adding the Izzy Stark of it all, but really Penn State's on a climb. They're kind of putting that in the past, putting that in the back seat, and putting themselves in the driver's seat and trying to go as far as they can with what they've got right now. Addie Lyons is doing a great job with what she's got. I mean, she's not the tallest setter in the Big Ten, but she uses what she has to her advantage. She hustles as much as she can, and she wants nothing more than for those girls to be successful and win. And that's all you can do as a setter, is set those girls up so that they can go be successful. So I think the Nittany Lions are still trying to figure things out, as they will be all through November here, but they're in the right place and they're climbing the way that they want to climb. You don't want to be at the top heading into November. You've still got matches to play. You want to be your best heading into December.
And a huge weekend for Penn State and the rest of the Big Ten as they wrap up the Discover Challenge on Friday night and try to build those conference records throughout the rest of the weekend. What matches, Mac, are you most looking forward to watching this coming weekend?
I'll be on the call for a couple Penn State games, but I have to say my calendar is circled with that Nebraska-Wisconsin game, as it always is. It's the end of the Big Ten Challenge. It'll be a ton of fun, and those two teams always battle, so it'll be exciting. I know Wisconsin's had some injuries, some players fall down. That does hurt them a little bit, but when you have the other red team across the net from you, those Badgers really know how to show up, so I think it'll be a fun match regardless.
I like it. The other red team. You know, you're not even allowed to say the other team's name when you head up to that match. Good stuff, as always, from Mac Pedraza, dropping some volleyball knowledge as we get set to close this chapter of the Discover Big Ten Volleyball Challenge. Mac, we appreciate the time. Enjoy the call this weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Big Ten Cross Country Championships Friday morning. Abdel Lagel of Oregon claiming the men's individual title in the team race. The Ducks placed 5 runners in the top 15 to win. On the women's side, more from Oregon. Diana Cheretich, the individual winner. 6 Duck runners inside the top 9, the team championship, and the best winning score in Big Ten championship history. As we look at the Big Ten football teams in the current AP Top 25 poll, you see Ohio State and Indiana holding fast at 1-2. Oregon is at number 6. Michigan and USC are inside the top 25. Washington, Iowa, and Illinois receiving votes. It is hard to believe that neither the Huskies nor the Hawkeyes are inside the top 25. They each only have 2 losses. They are quality losses for both teams. So Ross Dellinger is back with us. Next Tuesday night, Ross, we see the first College Football Playoff Committee rankings release of the year. You're fascinated by where Washington is placed in those rankings. Tell me why.
Yeah, it would be very interesting. And we're talking about it a little bit off air, right? Is that their path to the playoff is there, right? They should be favored, Washington, in the next 3 games. And then they have that one against Oregon, right, to end the year. But they get that at home. You know, you win your next 3, you beat Oregon. Look, man, you are in the playoff. Not only that, you're probably taking away a spot from your arch rival in Oregon from the playoff. So look for the Huskies. Jed Fishy's done a really good job up there to maybe get in this thing, and it'll be interesting to see where the committee puts them. I know they're not in the AP Top 25. They will almost certainly be in the CFP's top 25. So I'll be interested to see what spot exactly, but I would guess that they'll be in the 20s somewhere.
Yeah, you mentioned, Ross, that schedule for Washington before the Oregon game. They're at Wisconsin, home against Purdue, at UCLA, big-time favorites in those 3 games. Dave Wanstead has his eye on the Hawkeyes. I mean, you could argue the 2 best losses of any 2-loss team in the country. Last-second field goal against Iowa State, and then gave Indiana by far its toughest game of the year.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have felt this way or would be saying this if I didn't feel that they adjusted their offense to fit their quarterback, Mark Gronowski, okay, to fit his ability level, run and pass, mostly run. And he's getting better every week. But when you look at their schedule, obviously Oregon, USC, Michigan State, Nebraska, it's not easy. But I'm not going to underestimate Kirk Ferentz and his football team one bit.
Especially if you think about now on bye this week, both Iowa and Oregon on bye before they meet next week, that game's in Iowa City.
Snow.
If Iowa wins that game, and if the weather is bad, you know they're hoping that it's cold and nasty.
Yep.
Then the Hawkeyes would be looking at 7-2. The road trip to USC is tough. Michigan State, they'll be massive favorites. You would go into that Nebraska game on the Friday after Thanksgiving, knowing full well if you win that game, you are headed to the college football playoff. Who would have said that after Iowa's early season struggles? That's why this is the best time of the year, and it has nothing to do with Halloween. Ross Dellinger, good stuff as always. We appreciate you being with us. For Dave Wanstead, I'm Rick Pizzo, and thanks to you for hanging out with us on this edition of Big Ten Today.